You're on the John Fredericks Media Network and the John Fredericks Radio apps. Great to have you with us. Coming live from Washington, D.C. Joining me now, Dr. Mehmet Oz, my good friend Dr. Oz. Saw him a couple weeks ago at the press briefing where they rolled out for Maha the new food pyramid. Had one of the greatest lines ever. When asked about occasional alcohol drinking, he called it social lubrication and said, do it in moderation, and you get together with people, and it's a stress reducer that will lower your blood pressure. Thought that was the greatest answer on a few glasses of wine I'd ever heard. So it kind of fired me up. But
John, just to interrupt you. So, John, of course, plays a very prominent role in these White House press conferences. Everyone loves you, but you're also a dominant personality. So he's standing on the side, and they asked this question. Now, just for a little back behind the scenes insight, before you walk out on the stage with Caroline and the rest of the team, I've got Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Rollins. We did sort of do a little bit of role playing. Who's going to answer what questions? Nobody thought they would ask a question about alcohol. It just wasn't the highlight of the question. So, of course, of the presentation. So the first question right out of the gate is the alcohol question. So I look towards Bobby and say, you take that question. He says, no way I'm taking that. And Bobby's very public about his issues around alcohol. He goes to AA every morning. He's a close friend. He literally goes every morning. And so he says, no, you're doing it. I look the other way. Marty McCary says, I'm not taking it. So I told people what I actually think is reflective of what many doctors believe, which is if you're not having alcohol for breakfast by yourself, which is clearly a problem, if you're not dependent on alcohol to be able to, or any substance to get through the day, then there's nothing healthier than being with friends and having a good time. You and I having a meal together in central Pennsylvania in the coldest day of the year, it's still okay because we're having a good time talking to each other. So I think that becomes a more dominant element. And in blue zones, which are places where people just live a long time, 4 times more frequently to age 100 than in America, like Sardinia, for example, they don't drink much. They have a very small amount, and little tiny, it's Italian glasses. They're not big. The U.S. pour is like a whole bottle. But these days, just sip it. But they're there with a bunch of 90-year-olds that they've been friends with for 90 years, and that gets them through the day.
I tell you what, it was just it was a great question with a great follow-up, but I love the way you answered it. And look, I think this is the thing that I've always loved about you, Dr. Oz, is your candor and forthrightness and honesty. I mean, you stood up right there and said, look, I'm not going to sit here and say don't drink because it's not going to happen. Like, I think we already had that in prohibition. It didn't work. So here's the way to do it. Here's our position on it with the new food pyramid coming out. One of the things you said, and by the way, Dr. Oz, in President Trump's cabinet in HHS with RFK Jr. is the head of the Social Security Administration that has a tremendous portfolio of the things he's working on. One of the things that you said is the new food pyramid. You were very emphatic in that it was going to decrease the amount of money that families are spending on sickness, on doctors and all that, because they were simply be healthier. Walk us through that quickly.
Well, just compare us to Europe. And folks who've had a chance to travel the world might remark that they seem to feel healthier oftentimes when they eat those local meals. But in Europe, they spend, I'm just going to make some rough numbers, twice as a percentage of their income on food as we do. So they spend a lot more on food than we do. And yet they have a far smaller healthcare bill, roughly half of ours. And so you're going to pay for it one way or the other. If you pay for food, it's inexpensive, it's fun, and you get a lot of side benefits because food is medicine. If you don't eat real food, you eat stuff that doesn't look the way it looked when it came out of the ground when you consume it. If it's highly processed food that's designed for shelf life, not human life, then you will ultimately pay the price through being obese, having mental fog, and developing downstream complications of those, which range from heart attacks and kidney problems to dementia. And I think, and Secretary Kennedy's been an advocate of this his whole career, but many of us, I think, it's just as children, we saw that if you ate the right things, you perform better. If you played sports, which I did, I definitely could correlate having a healthier meal. That they gave us special food in a special dining room in college because they wanted us to eat the right things because they thought we'd perform better. So there's definitely an understanding, if you're going to practice what you preach, to focus on food. The pyramid does something very important. It pushes back on dishonesty in the original creation of the pyramid. It's right side up now. It's the way it's supposed to be. This war on fat, the war on meat was ill-founded, doesn't correlate to any real long-term health benefits. And while we were focused on avoiding fat, you ran to carbs. And carbs really are the problem. Now, I don't want to vilify carbs either, because high quality whole grains are a reasonable part of your diet, but they should not be the dominant part of your diet.
Right.
Folks will say, well, fats, especially saturated fats, are the worst thing out there. I'm going to have simple carbohydrates. Well, simple carbohydrates, all the white foods, when they get into your body, are just sugar, right? White sugar, but white flour as well. And they are processed in the body like empty calories. And the brain, very smartly, John, is looking for nutrients, not calories. And so if you give it empty calories like a soft drink, you'll consume those calories, but you won't get any benefit. Your brain will make you keep eating till it gets the nutrients. That's why I'll give a little tip for everybody. I never leave home without nuts in my pocket. Always keep nuts somewhere around you. They're logistically easy to cart around. Tree nuts, real nuts, almonds and walnuts and the like. They also have, because they're baby trees, right? They're tree eggs. They have high amounts of nutrients, and although they have calories in them and some fats, they have so many nutrients that you just don't keep eating. And every study ever done has shown that people who eat nuts tend to lose weight or maintain their weight. People who don't eat nuts tend to gain weight if they don't replace that nutrient source with something else that's worthwhile. And so these are simple tips that our mothers told us. Let's go back to that basic.
I think that makes sense. I'm going to start eating more walnuts, no doubt about it. And I know when I did your campaign in 2022, you were always on me to lose a little bit of weight so I'd stay a lot healthier. So thank you for that. I heard Secretary Kennedy, I'm a big fan of, as you know, say that the biggest healthcare accomplishment of President Trump's first year was cutting deals with individual pharmaceutical companies to lower drug costs for patients through Trump RX. Now, he was able to get these costs down, kind of combat Obamacare. It's the kind of the art of the deal. Will President Trump continue to cut these deals like for Trump X directly with companies instead of a massive legislative package?
We're going to keep making the deals because the president, as you say, likes to have the power to convene, pull back together the big guys, get them to connect with them emotionally, understand intellectually what the argument is, which I should present to everybody. And once you have that discussion, people generally will come over to his side. He's a very persuasive leader. So here's the story. For decades, Americans have paid 3 times more for the exact same products, the exact same medications, made in the same factory, put in the same bottles, even in this country, than they do in Europe. Once again, we pay 3 times more for the same medications than they pay for in Europe. The president said, we're not doing that anymore. So he told us to go out and start speaking to the pharmaceutical leaders. And we hired some top tier individuals. And that's a big message for you today. We are recruiting folks. We are blessed to have wonderful world leaders coming in to serve under President Trump. These folks, when they have a strong negotiating approach, can talk to pharma and basically say, listen, you got in the way with it for a long time, no mas. And what does the pharmacy industry say? Yeah, you got us. We knew one day you'd come knocking. All right, what do you want to do? And they make deals. Right? These people want to be in business. They want to stay innovative. The president did not want to heavy-handedly force them to do things that were bad for their businesses, because they will stop innovating and they'll run to other countries, which is what's happened now. Europe has lost its pharmaceutical companies. They've come to America because America still supports people who want to build cures for cancer and other kinds of ailments that plague our people. That's what a great country does. It takes care of its most vulnerable, including investing in solutions to everything from sickle cell anemia to multiple sclerosis. And so these companies have cut deals with us. We're very happy with them. The president does want to codify these deals. And by that, I mean, in order to make sure that there's not a dissolution of this arrangement that the president has allowed with his power of the personality to take place, he doesn't want a future administration to have a problem. He doesn't want pharmaceutical companies to run away. He wants to just codify this. So we want to grandfather in the companies who will willingly come in, almost all have, and just put some rules around how this works. So the government doesn't go further. We don't want to cut innovation, and yet we want to sort of keep the pricing where it is for America because it's much fairer.
When is Trump RX going to go live?
Very soon. The site itself is live, but the loading on of the dozens of products that are going to be on it that will make it easier for Americans to take advantage of these great prices will start very soon. You'll hear all about it when we break the news. But I'm very excited. It's being built by Joe Gebbia, who founded Airbnb, and Ed Big Balls, who's that's his nickname. You may have heard of him, but he was the guy who got beaten up trying to help a woman before they brought in the the extra troops to help get Washington cleaned up. But these two folks have been a wondrous pair with Noah Safio, who works with me at CMS, and they have done a lot of great work. But I tell you, it all comes down to the negotiating team, and that was Chris Klump. Chris Klump built $1 billion business, gave it up to come in and serve the president. Inma Hernandez, huge academic job on the West Coast, gave it up, came in. John Brooks, same thing, very successful, gave it up, came into government to serve. And these people are the best in the business. And when they talk to pharmaceutical companies, their counterparties respect them. And that's something that's different again. The president doesn't just lead with the power of his personality and his pros. He's able to attract high quality individuals into government who can carry out the mission. Look at what the military has been able to do. Look at his success across the board with the economy. You bring top tier people in, you give them air support, give them the ability to go out and do what everyone who's rational thinks should happen. And you might have disagreements with Democrats, but at the end of the day, they look at what we're doing with these medication prices, for example, and they have to acknowledge this is a good idea. If they could have pulled it off, they would have. And so it's nice to have bipartisan support of an initiative for a change.
Well, listen, it's about affordability. He's bringing drug prices down. Let's get to healthcare costs. By the way, we're with Dr. Mehmet Oz. He's head of the Social Security Administration. That is a cabinet level position, basically.
I run CMS. I'm only bringing it up because Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services is the health insurance system of the country. So I'm the one who makes sure with my team that you get your Medicare checks on time. We deal with Medicaid, which has unfortunately been under assault by a lot of states who are taking advantage of it. So my job is to protect our most vulnerable.
So that's a great segue. So when you look at healthcare costs in the country and the way insurance is driving it, I saw a study the other day that said if you pay for a procedure cash versus through insurance, that it's normally through insurance, it's 7 times higher than if you're paying out of your pocket directly. How is that even possible?
Someone's got to negotiate. John, if you went to a store and I told you the prices on the shelves, which you normally have, you can make a wise decision about what you're going to buy. But if I tell you at the door, I'm not going to tell you what anything costs, a third party is going to come pick up the tab, and the more it costs you, the more money they'll make. Well, then guess what? People are going to start jacking prices up. They're not going to watch the bottom line. And the only stakeholder who's 100% aligned to make sure they get the best care for the best value is the patient. And the patient doesn't get to play a role because they're not informed. So in this new great healthcare plan that the president has been pushing, we're going to codify most favored nation drug pricing. We're going to aggressively deal with the transparency issue, which is what you just mentioned. Let people see what things cost. And we want accountability by insurance. Because, John, the way you prevent insurance companies from gaming the system is you squeeze them to make sure that you know how much money they're making, percentage-wise of what you're paying them, right? I mean, obviously, they have to make money, but they shouldn't make most of the money. Most of the money you pay an insurance company should go to pay for claims, for care in case you get sick. We want to make sure insurance companies share details like how long do I have to wait to get a doctor? Specific things that actually make a difference to you when you try to use the insurance to get better health care.
Dr. Oz, what about insurance companies marking up prescription drugs in Trump RX? Are they still going to continue to do that? Because they're already marking up and making a fortune on health care, but you're trying to get prescription costs down, which has gone through the crazy here. Why are they still allowed to mark these up?
Well, we think the pricing on Trump RX, which is going to be the best in the world, will allow the employers and individuals, now that they know what things could cost, to go for those prices. So, for example, the weight loss drugs, the GLP-1 drugs, which historically were costing over $1,200 per injection, those prices now are more like $200. Now, with that price drop, anyone who's paying cash can get access to that. Anyone on Medicare gets it for just $50. Medicaid gets it for free. So we get our people who are most vulnerable taken care of. But then the commercial insurance companies that cover the people who are working in America, building value in America, are going to quickly start pushing for those same prices. And we're already seeing that pressure.
If you look at what Biden did, and I'm really focused here on prescription drugs because I think you got to fix that before you're going to really get to the bottom of Obamacare. But through massive legislation that they passed, basically the way they did drug reimbursement didn't make any sense. It hurts doctors, it hurts cancer clinics, and especially patients. Is there anything that the administration or Congress can do to just fix that one piece of it without a massive battle?
I think that's tough, John. I mean, that ship has sailed. It takes 15 of the highest paying drugs in the country and allows negotiations around them. But at this point, with Congress so split and divided, it's hard to go back and revisit many of these things. But I can say something, John. It was interesting watching this week when I was in Davos with the president as part of the delegation, and I witnessed people hear him for the first time. Folks who heard about his reports on news or journalist perspectives on what he's saying, when he actually started explaining some of these drug pricing issues, for example, the average person in the audience started nodding their head. And the real message he was giving Europe is what's good for America will be good for you. Copy us when it makes sense for you, and often it does. Be tougher on some of these issues. Fight for the small men. Fight for the average person who is not trusting our government anymore because they keep seeing games being played. And obviously, I focus on it from the healthcare perspective, which is critical to folks. But it's reflected in many other decisions we make about immigration, about finance, about housing, about affordability. And it was really, to me, reassuring to hear Europeans after he made two big presentations. One, just speaking about what's happening in America and why he feels so strongly about what our positions overseas. And second, about the Board of Peace, which is focused right now on the Middle East, but it's going to affect, it'll affect many war-torn areas as we rebuild these areas. But what he's basically saying is be strong, be powerful, own the mantle if you're elected as a leader. And that's what the president has done. A lot of these specifics around legislation and, in this case, drug pricing come back to the fundamental reality. What is the right thing for the American people? If what you're doing is hurting the American people, eventually everyone's going to come after you. We're seeing this now with insurance companies and others as well who are struggling with trying to get the bullseye off their back. But if you're adopting what's best for the American people, and I think the pharmaceutical industry is showing a willingness to do that, suddenly you move from being a pariah to being something we all stand up and get proud of. And I'll never forget the day that we did one of the first most favored nation drug pricing deals with the president, where he signed, these contracts are being signed and everyone's sort of high-fiving that we made a move forward. Remember, these drug companies are giving up billions of dollars of potential profit. And so they have shareholders and boards they've got to report to, but these CEOs are bravely doing the right thing for the American people. That afternoon, there was an executive order by Linda McMahon and her daughter Stephanie McMahon that the president was signing on childhood cancer. Every one of these beautiful smiling faces, John, 20 kids crowded around the president at the Oval Office, they were all kids who would have died from cancer. But because pharmaceutical companies came up with better solutions in this country, those kids are alive. And I bet kids with those same diagnoses overseas may not be alive. So these are high stakes issues, but part of it is just making it clear you are rooting for the American people. And I think other leaders should do that for their people as well, not kowtow to third party interests who have dreams about energy and how it's so bad for us. Put your people first, always.
Obamacare subsidies that expired. What is your vision for what to do with this whole mess, Dr. Oz?
Well, for the original people who are on Obamacare earn between 1 and 4 times the poverty level, and their premiums are increasing between $13 and $25 a month. So, less than $1 a day. And there's not a huge departure in that group. We have right now about 1.3 million people less out of the 24 million people in the program. Remember, all the pundits were saying we're going to lose 8 million people. And the reason 1.3 is important is we took 1.5 million people off the rolls because they weren't supposed to be on the ACA. They were dishonest about their salaries. They were not told they were on the Obamacare program. So we're sort of neutral. We're not seeing a big shift in the market, which means that the 83% subsidies that we currently give to Obamacare recipients is enough. You can give them 100%, but 83% is pretty good too. And the American people are also sort of saying 83% is pretty good. I don't have to pay for all of it. Let them pay a little bit of it on their own. There is a group of people who are making more than 4 times the poverty level that never got Obamacare, that only got it during COVID. And they're the ones that the Democrats are pointing to. But it's a fallacious argument. They were never part of Obamacare. And if the Democrats wanted them to be part of Obamacare, they should have made a law saying that. Instead, they said, just this year, just for this time period, just during COVID, give them a little bit of a break. Fine. Everyone said, good. The pandemic, last I checked, is over. So decisions that were made to support people during the pandemic should expire.
Well, then the other thing is, the Democrats are one that when they passed this, they sunsetted it for December 31st, 2025. So they're the ones that did the sunset. Then they're complaining about the sunset that they basically did. Like, how does that make sense?
Well, there are senators, Democratic senators, who are pointing that out, John. Even the Democrats realize the hypocrisy. This is pure politics. Let's be clear. I don't think any of the folks on the other side of the aisle really think this is the biggest problem in America. But it's a great political issue, and you confuse Americans into thinking we're talking about all healthcare prices when you're only talking about people between 1 and 4 times the poverty level, and even there you have additional support that's so massive that, listen, if I told you go to a restaurant, eat whatever you want, I'll pay 83%, you pay 17%. You'd say, all right, it's a pretty good deal. You didn't pay the whole meal, but 83% is a pretty good job. And that's why I point out that there hasn't really been a meaningful shift in the market.
Let's get to, I know we're running out of time, but I want to get to what we call 340B reform. I know another accomplishment has been to start reforming the 340B drug discount program. And I know the administration is making sure that these drug discounts are going to go straight to patients instead of insurance companies. What is your position on that, and how does that work?
Well, 340B was created as a mechanism of letting hospitals in underserved areas get a little bit of extra money for dispensing medications. And it ended up being a lot of extra money. And then some of the bigger hospitals started using it. And then they began to game the system with things like duplicate discounts, which means you get the discount twice, which means you're actually now making money off these drug companies. I mean, the drug companies literally are paying money for people to use their products. And so they're upset about it. Just objectively, I think we can do better. We are revisiting this issue pretty aggressively. I do think 340B is important for the hospital system, especially underserved areas, and I especially need them to ensure that federally qualified health clinics, where a lot of Americans get their care, especially underserved Americans, are able to get care at those clinics, because those clinics have a mechanism of making a little bit of money on the side. But we don't want cheating to happen. So, any case, John, listen, I love talking to you. I love spending time with you. I've got to go back to my day job, which starts in 3 minutes. I appreciate all that you've done throughout the years, and enjoy your smiling face. Keep it up.
Dr. Memenaz, people want to follow you. Where do they go?
Dr. Oz is just use those words, those letters, four letters. Dr. Oz. Look on any of the social media platforms. I also have Dr. Oz CMS for more government-specific initiatives. So please follow both. I try to get the word out as much as possible. Cut past all the pundits and get the information directly to you. Posting today, by the way, on some of the massive fraud in California, which is going to be in the news a lot this week.
My best to your lovely wife, Lisa. Tell her I said hi, and thanks for being with us, Dr. Oz.
God bless, John.
All right.